This is the FM Gold channel of All India Radio. In the program News Analysis, now we bring you a discussion on India-China bilateral talks. The participants are Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat, and Simran Sodhi, journalist.
Today we are discussing the meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Chinese President Xi Jinping in China. This meeting was held on the sidelines of the BRICS summit, and this is the first meeting between the two leaders post the Doklam crisis. Ambassador Sajjanhar, we saw a lot of hype and a lot of anticipation leading to this meeting between the Indian and the Chinese leadership. How do you assess the success of the meeting, especially when it comes after the tense standoff in Doklam has ended?
It's been a successful meeting. You said very rightly that there were a large number of expectations and anticipation from this meeting. People had been speculating as to what will be discussed. Will Doklam be discussed? Will terrorism be discussed? Will it be on economic issues, economic matters? And many of the analysts and commentators had said that Doklam and terrorism is done and dusted, and so there will be nothing that will be done on that. As the press conference and the briefing that was given by Foreign Secretary Dr. S. Jaishankar, much of the discussion seemed to have taken place Doklam on building trust, on building confidence, on making sure that borders between the two countries remain peaceful and tranquil, and that issues of the nature that happened in Doklam, that such instances don't recur. It was mentioned that the meeting was expected to be for about half an hour, but it went for beyond 1 hour. So I think in that sense, it can be taken to be a success also, because, leaders will spend time with each other if they think that there is some significance, some relevance, and some takeaway from that. And in that same context, it has been mentioned that the last meeting between the two leaders that took place in Astana on the sidelines of the SCO summit, that took place only for 20 minutes. And another aspect that was reinforced, that the Astana consensus that both the sides should try and ensure that disagreements do not change into disputes, and also that there should be much greater interaction and much greater cooperation, collaboration, much more active contact between the defense personnel of the two sides, so that situations that have taken place in the recent past, that they don't recur in future.
Ambassador Sajjanhar, we also saw that the Chinese, the official news agency today, when it reported on the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping, has said that the Chinese leadership said that the relationship needs to be put back on the right track. One would find surprising about this statement is that it seems to be very conciliatory in nature, especially when one considers the rather aggressive and belligerent statements which came out of China in the 73-day Doklam standoff that took place. Would you agree with the analysis that at the end of the crisis, at the end of the tensions between India and China, which has ended peacefully, India and the leadership of India has emerged in a much stronger position when it comes to dealing with China and the strains that underlie this bilateral relationship?
I would tend to agree with you, Simran, that India has, so to say, emerged from this confrontation, this standoff roses, so to say. I think they have conducted themselves extremely well, and all the three instruments of Indian policy determination and implementation, whether it is the political leadership at the top and then the Ministry of External Affairs in terms of the diplomatic outreach and the army in terms of the personnel on the ground. I think there was perfect coordination between all three of them, and in that context, the way the messaging was sent out and the way the armed forces conducted themselves, I think it really worked to clockwork precision. So in that sense, it was done extremely well, and they never expected that India would come in such a manner, in such a decisive manner, and stop them from constructing the road in Doklam. And also, I think as far as the timing is concerned, that China and particularly President Xi Jinping wanted a successful summit, a successful outcome, which should also appear to be successful. And Indian side, Prime Minister Modi particularly, I think played their cards extremely well, because they made it be known very clearly that if the Doklam issue is not settled appropriately, suitably, in a manner which is satisfactory to India, then Prime Minister Modi will find it extremely difficult to travel to Xiamen for the 9th BRICS Summit. And that was one of the reasons why just before the BRICS Summit on 28th of August, the standoff there was a resolution and troops on both sides pulled off and China stopped its proposal to construct the road. So coming to BRICS, yes, the manner in it has played out and also whatever has happened as far as the BRICS Summit is concerned, the outcome there is also a matter of great satisfaction. So India went into the summit standing tall and confident, and it has emerged also in a manner in which it can be extremely satisfied. But that having been said, I think it's a very complex relationship. It's a very significant relationship. It's a very important relationship. And we have to, I don't think we should be looking at winners and losers and victors and defeated people here, but we need to see how to structure this relationship so that we can reap maximum advantage and benefit from this.
You talked about the BRICS nations. The official end statement that we saw mentioned terrorism. It addressed India's concern. It referred to the terrorist organizations based in Pakistan. We also saw that in the briefing that the Foreign Secretary, Dr. Jaishankar, that he did in China after the leadership had met, both the Indian and the Chinese, he did say specifically that terrorism is one issue that was not discussed, but peace and tranquility on the border is one issue that came up. The reason that the Indian and Chinese leadership did not feel the need to discuss terrorism is that this is an issue that has already been discussed by the BRICS leadership. India already has a small diplomatic victory in the sense that the statement issued by the BRICS leaders addresses India's concerns, and two, the issues between Prime Minister Modi and the Chinese leadership today was their own bilateral border. Would you agree with both the assessments?
I would agree, because I think all that needed to be said on the issue of terrorism had already been said as far as the meeting amongst the BRICS member states were concerned. And not only in terms of having said it, but whatever needed to be done, the action that had to be taken, that had also been taken, and there was very much on in black and white, in writing, in the 43-page document declaration that has come out. And I think again there India needs to be satisfied, because if you look at the progress that has been made from the 8th BRICS Summit in October 2016 in Goa to the 9th one in September, less than a year, just about 11 months. And what a remarkable movement forward and progress that has taken place. Because there, if you would recall, Mr. Xi Jinping, when he, in his plenary statement, he clubbed the issue of terrorism along with disaster management and other man-made and natural disasters. He did not focus on terrorism per se. If you remember what Mr. Putin said meaning he didn't even mention the word terror in his plenary statement. So if you look at the situation, that was all basically to keep on the right side of Pakistan, so to say. But if you see the progress that has been made, the distance covered from then till now, I think that is huge. So that is a matter of satisfaction. So as you said very rightly, that whatever needed to be said and done as far as terrorism is concerned, that was already done. This is nothing very new, nothing very significant, because similar formulation had appeared in the Heart of Asia Declaration in Amritsar last year. But my point there is that was most participants there were more at the official level. Here it is on Chinese territory and under the chairmanship of the Chinese president that this is being done. So I think in terms of the significance, heft and weight of this declaration, it is much greater. And I think it sends out a much stronger signal, and it binds China in that sense much more to this commitment that it has to deal with terrorism in terms of foreign terror financing, etc. The second question that you said, both the leaders decided to discuss bilateral issues, absolutely right. So this was what many commentators before the meeting were saying, is that Doklam will not be discussed because maybe they thought neither of the two leaders wants to embarrass the other one. But I think it speaks of the maturity and the sagacity of the two leaders, that they decided to take the bull by the horns rather than pushing the issue under the carpet. They decided to take bull by the horns, discuss it and settle the matter, so that the message that it sends out also to the world and also to their own people is that we are determined to bring stability and peace and tranquility to our bilateral relations. While mentioning this, also it might be useful to remember that one should not look upon China like we cannot look upon India as a monolith of thoughts or opinions or points of view. There also it is said that maybe the PLA wanted to have a showdown with India while there are such a large number of other instruments and agencies and forces in China which want better and more stable and peaceful relations with India.
Ambassador Sajjanhar, one, as you mentioned about terrorism and the fact that this statement has been issued in China, so it would kind of pressurize China to now act more strongly, as we have seen in the recent past, against terror being funded from foreign territories.
I would wish and hope and I feel reasonably sanguine that there would be a change. Because I think when countries want to occupy the space at the global high table, then they need to be very careful about what they are saying or what they are committing themselves to. If it was just a piece of paper, then China would not have fought so hard at the Goa summit last year to protect Pakistan. Also, I think we have no reference to either cross-border terrorism or mention of any of these groups. Also, I think we need to keep in mind that after the Heart of Asia summit meeting also, China has put technical hold on Masood Azhar. So in that sense, they have not felt themselves totally bound by their commitment. But the point that I would like to make here is, because both these points go against each other, but the final point that I would like to make here is that I think China has found its position getting increasingly untenable, that when the problem of terrorism, and particularly from Pakistan, is staring the world in the face, and we've seen what President Trump also said on the 21st of August when he was speaking about the US-Afghan strategy, South Asia strategy, that's a safe haven of terrorists, and President Trump has gone out of the way whether to identify Sayyid Salahuddin or Hizbul Mujahideen as global terrorist organization and so on and so forth. So China also must have felt the pressure, and China also must have seen that its position is lacking credibility, and that's why it has moved in this direction. And if that is the rationale, that is the logic, then I think this is the first step, but going forward we should be in a position to see positive action being taken by China when it comes to the designation of terrorists like Masood Azhar by the United Nations.
Ambassador Sajjanhar, if you were to kind of put the meeting between the two leaders briefly, we had the Foreign Secretary describing it as a forward-looking conversation. This is what he told the media in China. Would you say that this meeting that the Indian and the Chinese leadership had today, especially after Doklam is over, will help India and China move together in the global order, especially given the light of the fact that India and China are also competing for the same regional and to some extent the same global influences?
The competition definitely is there, and I think that competition and cooperation can coexist, and there is much greater significance of cooperation than if there is confrontation. We need to bring down the element of confrontation, limit it to competition, and try to expand the scope of cooperation. And I think this is possible. So the meeting today and the discussions today will definitely be a step in that direction. And I think since both the leaders have said that incidents like the one that occurred recently should not recur in future, I think both sides should try to ensure that. But India will have to be on its guard. I don't think we can afford to be complacent, and we cannot afford to take the dragon at its word. But let us see if it walks the talk. And that is what we'll have to try to ensure and keep up the pressure as far as issues of terrorism are concerned and issue of peace and tranquility on our borders is concerned.
And we continue to follow the Prime Minister as he leaves China today and departs for Myanmar. Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on India-China bilateral talks. The participants were Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat, and Simran Sodhi, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. This program is also available on our website newsonair.nic.in. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.